So, kind of next topic is sort of strategy and strategic decisions for the business. And we always joke that, we live in a world of like 10% information, where for any given decision, you've probably got 10% of the information you'd like to have. And you just don't have time to get the next 90. And maybe it's 30, 70, whatever the ratio is. And we also live in a world of just compounding pace of change, where things innovate and happen faster and faster every day. And so, Brian, I've had the joy of working with you on this for many, many years. Talk about early days when I think a lot of strategy is gut to map to today a 2015 strat planning process.
Sure. So I guess I was fortunate in a way that in the early days, AppNexus was trying to be very similar to what Right Media was before. So having built Right Media, being the first ad exchange, we kind of knew more than anyone else about the space. So I think we had a huge asymmetric advantage where we knew how things would play out. And so we were able to sort of skip a lot of the basic strategy questions. The question was really, how do you compete with yourself? Right Media had all of our IP, all of our technology, and in the beginning, all of our people. And so the day our no hire ran out, we hired the 10 best product and engineering people out of Yahoo back to AppNexus. And then and now, they form the core of the company. So that was the first trick. I couldn't figure that out for the patents. So we really had to invent a new way of running an ad exchange. And so the strategy was really based on being a tiny little company in a sea of giants. There was a point, we were about 6 months maybe into building our exchange strategy. Google was, maybe 6 months away from launching their exchange. Yahoo had been in market for a long time. And a friend of mine who was still at Yahoo forwarded me the cover slide from a deck that he had just seen presented to whoever was the CEO of Yahoo that year, that basically said I'm just being honest, our 4 biggest threats in online advertising. They thought that ad tech was core to their business. And I think it was Google, Microsoft, AOL, and AppNexus with 12 employees. No product. And so from very beginning, we had this massive target on our back. And then about 6 months later, when we were trying to hire Michael out of Google, Google was having a big ad exchange conference. And they invited a few hundred of the most important people around the industry. And like 2 days before Michael started at AppNexus, he hadn't told them yet, he had to call me and uninvite me from their conference because AppNexus was too threatening to Google. It was a very awkward phone call. But more importantly, it's terrifying to have Google decide that you're an existential threat when you're about 18 people at that point. So a lot of our strategy was based around just being an absolute gnat in this massive space. And so over time, our strategy and planning process has evolved. Back then, we could change direction overnight, and often did at about 3 in the morning. Today, when I have an idea or a sense of where we need to go, it usually takes about 6 months for those ideas to become really part of our core strategy, and then another 6 months past that for them to be fully rolled out. So we've got about a year to turn the ship from when I decide what I think we should do, along with the leadership team and input from across the company, until it really becomes reality. And I think that gets longer every year as we get bigger. When we finish our acquisition of OAS in 2 weeks, we'll have offices in 18 companies. We'll have well over 800 people worldwide. Just this sheer question of how do you cascade information to all those people is a process in and of itself. We have a very large strategy and operations function whose job is to run our annual strat planning process. We have an extraordinary consultant who comes in to lead that process every year. And so strategy is not just something that we think about casually. It's one of our most important processes, and takes up, I think I did the math last year, it was 31 full days of my calendar, not mentioning any like part-time meetings or anything else, just full days of my calendar that were blocked out morning to night just to do strategy and planning, mostly between July and December, but two days a month I think are blocked out for the management team just to do strategy, if that gives you a sense, which is just dramatically different, of course, than when we were early.
2 days every month?
2 days every month.
And I'm just curious, and what is the degree of change in the strategy? Are you changing, how often do you make a major change in strategy? Is it kind of refining, or is it big changes?
AppNexus people in the audience, do you want to answer that one? I'd say most of the meetings, like from July to September, it's big changes. It's all the stuff I've been, yeah, I'm always like a year ahead. So I'm already thinking about 2016. Truly. I mean, just because for anything I want to do to become real at the scale I want it to become real, I have to be thinking that way. And so usually around July is when I start telling everyone what the next year will be like, and everyone panics. And then August, everyone takes the vacation and comes back like ready to hear it again. And I say it again in September, and everyone starts believing me. And then from October to like right now, we're in the heart of crazy meetings where at different levels of the company, we get people on board. And it's like funny, every time we bring another set of people over the wall, they have the same reaction. It's like the stages of grief. It's like, we just got used to the last strategy. Are you crazy? And then by the time we get to about December, they're like resigned to it. And then around March or April, everyone's really excited and jazzed up, like we finally get it, which is just in time to start again. So most of the meetings in like January, February, March are execution to make sure that the rollout is solid. So, and also the strategy never works in reality. So all my crazy ideas are wrong. I know that. But the idea is that in January, when we see them start to become reality, everyone jumps into a room like, okay, Brian, you were completely wrong. It's never going to work. What do we do now? And that's when we really define the strategy, is when we actually start making it happen.
Anybody else?
I'd say one thing, which, I mean, so it's funny, like as a bigger company, you're on these longer cycles, but, I was a management consultant for 2 years, and I'm very, very skeptical of strategy because I think what really counts is execution and customer feedback. So at an early stage, strategy was let's try a bunch of things, get it in front of customers, and see if they buy it. And a lot of the stuff that we built early on, had no back end. We just built a nice UI that looked like it did all these things. They'll say, wow, that's great. How much will you pay for that? They give us, and I'm like, okay. Do a little business case. That actually makes sense. We're going to go build that. And it's not actually that different from what you're doing on an annual cycle. You've got an idea. You kind of, now you can't, at your scale, can't do that. You've got to build something, but you get feedback. And so I think, one of the things that we still do is no one is allowed into a strategy discussion unless they have spoken to a customer in the last 30 days. Because I think I saw this at DoubleClick. A lot of the harebrained things that we did at DoubleClick were sort of corporate overhead types who had these ideas, but actually hadn't spoken to a customer. So I think it's critical.